Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. Welcome on in. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully, you guys had a good 4th of July. If you did, let me know in the comments below how it went. I'm trying to get my microphone to move. There we go. If you're new to the channel, my name is Tanya. You can call me that or Titanium Bill. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me at this point. At this point, it doesn't matter. But if you guys don't mind, just taking a second, come in, get comfortable. Say hello to the person above you and below you. I always say you may make a friend. You never know. You might make a friend in chat. Everybody needs friends, right? Everybody? Everybody needs friends. I don't know about everybody, actually. Some people may say, no, I don't need no friend. Whatever. But welcome in, everybody. We do talk true crime here on this channel. If that's something that you're into, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, all the fun things that we ask you to do. It helps us get into the algorithm. We get in the algorithm, and then we have more people come in and chat. So it's a win-win for everybody. So we'll say hi to everybody in the chat. My Wi-Fi was just kind of going low there a little. Vincent better get off the internet. Oh, and then it just went away, so it should be good. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Ozzy. Hey, Mary Beth. Hey, Ladybug. Welcome in. Welcome in again. If you were here for the day live, we had a day live today around 1 o'clock, something like that. Yeah. Ladybug was there. She was at our live. Ashley was there. Hey, Ashley. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Mr. Rosebud. Tammy's Clips is in here. We're doing Idaho tonight. Cheryl again. Hey, Citizen Sleuth. Hey, Catherine. CJK, welcome in. Well, welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see everybody. It rained here yesterday, so we really didn't do too much of anything. Somebody was setting off fireworks. I hear boom, 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 like little booms, but that was it. Hey, Tammy. Number 6 on the like. Thank you. Hey, Stephanie. Unspoken Heart Illness. Hi, how are you? Crystal Burns. I'm already saying hi to everybody. I feel like I need to just go through them now. If I missed you, let me know at the bottom. Sometimes I miss people and I don't mean to. Hey, Mary Beth Strickland. Don't know why I needed to pronounce your whole name, but I thought I did. Ember, how are you? You know, some people have those names, you just pronounce the whole thing. You must have one of those names to me. Hey, Patricia. Hey, Wist. I used to work with a girl, and I called her by her first and last name all the time. Hey, baby girl. Welcome in. I think we got everybody. Hey, Aries. It's good to see you, Aries. Okay, we're at the bottom. If I missed you, let me know. And hello. Hey, Linda. I don't know if I said hi to Linda. Listen, Linda. Gosh, I love that little kid on that meme in that video. That Listen, Linda video. It's cute. So tonight we're going to review a Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace came out with a new podcast tonight. As I was getting ready for our live, I was going to do the book and then do the other podcast. But Nancy decided to sneak one in there. So it's an hour and 26 minutes long. I'm like, what? So I'm pretty sure that she's just going to go over I know she's going over the book with Howard Blum, but that doesn't take an hour and a half. So I'm assuming she's going to go through the timeline, her experience in Moscow when she was there. And she's going to have some people on her guest panel. I didn't listen to all of it. I listened to little sections of it because it literally just came out. I don't know what time today, but it came out today. And it'll probably be on video tomorrow or the next day, but I could put an overlay of pictures up. But I was surprised that she did such a long broadcast because usually they're like 45 minutes. And I'm like, dang. DM waited to listen to it. Yeah, there's only a couple people that have her over there on Apple. That's where I get all my podcast. Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace. She's my favorite. Somebody, hold on a second. Now I got to tell you guys this. Somebody wrote something. You know, it's funny. It's funny to write stuff. It is. And I didn't take it to heart. So not everybody loves Nancy. You know what I mean? Just not everybody does. And that's okay. Because, you know, Nancy's not for everybody. I don't know if I'll be able to find Yeah, well, there we go. Um, let's see. It was down here somewhere. I thought I kept it. Maybe I didn't keep it. But it was like, I like everything about you, but you love Nancy Grace or something like that. And I was just like, I know. I'm sorry. I thought I thought I kept it. Now I'm sad I didn't. Maybe I went ahead and I like published it and let it go through so you might see it. But yeah. Thank you, One Shot, for gifting 20 memberships. My lordy. Well, thank you. Well, look at that. Please gift me YouTube, Harry said. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Welcome in new members. That's very kind. Very kind. Welcome all new members. But yeah, so she said something about the membership, or about me being a Nancy, lover. And I was like, I can't help it if I love Nancy. Just do. I don't know. Aries, I saw that. I saw that you were gifted. I meant to say something earlier. I was like, Aries is green. Just because, it was funny. It was very funny that I saw that you were green, because I know that you've been trying to get a membership over there. And I was just in there I wasn't in there chit chatting. I was in there not chit chatting. I was in there just listening in because I was cleaning. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's very kind. That is so kind of you. That's a way to make an entrance, Hey, Case Chaser. You're gifted in QB2. Man, Tammy, you guys are lucky today. Lucky day to be in the memberships. I don't have my gifted memberships on because I don't want people to know where I be heading. y'all can do that. No, I didn't want memberships to channels that I don't normally like. If I'm watching them just because it's like it's like content. Do you know what I mean? Related, because they're saying something so off the wall, or you know what I mean? I'm trying to gauge someone else's opinion. And, like, you don't want to be a member of that channel because you don't want other people thinking you're paying to be there. So I have one membership to one channel. That's so funny. Tammy Clips, you do. I do feel special. Yeah, I'm a member of Granny's channel, and that's it. I told her that today. She's like, oh, thank you. I was like, yeah, well, it's okay. No, I mean, I canceled all my memberships. I'm starting over. It has to be a large donation for me to be gifted. I'm surprised you weren't gifted that time, Aries. Let me see. Well, somebody's going to have to give 50 then, huh? I was trying to see who got them. Okay. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome on in. We did do a live earlier today over the Idaho 4. It was over the book that we're reading, the When the Night Comes Falling. It's by Howard Blum. We were reading chapter 4 or part 4, and we read through the second half of part 4 because it was kind of long, so we had to split that one up. Now we're on part 5, which is called The Defense's Story. And if we have time after, our Nancy Grace, because I don't know how many commercials she's going to have, how long, however long she is, if she's not too long, it says an hour, 26 minutes, but she has commercials. Maybe we'll read some of the book if you guys want to after we're done. But welcome into tonight's live again. My name is Tanya, like I told you in the beginning, but if you're now just joining us, thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. There's no updates in any of the cases that we're following. I checked. Except for Elijah Vu, his mom is changing her plea, and we'll go over that. But everything's kind of dried up. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's going on with all the cases that we're covering? But if you guys know of anything that I don't know, let me know. Because I was snooping and slooping and sleuthing today. They didn't, Tammy's clips. No, never did find them. But she's going to see, and that's why I didn't want to do it tonight, because I need to read more, because she's going to plead guilty to what was it again? I'm gonna look it up. I forget her charge. I want to say failure to report, but that's Madalena Kojikari's mom. Karina Barr. Man, there's like someone famous named that, apparently. I heard. I kind of heard. I didn't really know what was going on, Aries, but I kind of heard what was going on. I'm trying to find her. Okay, here it is. Oh, child neglect. Okay, it's chronic child neglect. But and maybe some of you may know. Actually, maybe someone in here knows this question, this answer. Madalena Kojikari's mom walks out of jail. Free woman. She pleads guilty to failure to report a child missing. So now she's just been, deemed the prime suspect in Madalena's death. Now, to me, I'm wondering, can she get up on a plane right now and go back to Moldova? Because if she can do that, there's no extradition treaty. I'm gonna write the sheriff. I'm gonna have to write the sheriff's office on that one, I think. But if you know the answer to that, let me know. Because she's out like trout. She's out smiling, living life. Tammy, someone sent pictures to my email and they live in the area and they had pictures of her at the pool. This person doesn't look like surveillance team. I loved it. Like they were really snapping. I do too. I think Madalena is alive. I do too, Tammy. I really do. Like, I really think she's tucked away somewhere because when Madalena's mom, sorry, got off topic, we didn't get on topic, I guess, yet though. But when Madalena's mom walked out of the jail, the reporter said something about Madalena, like, do you care about Madalena or something like, that along those lines? Or do you know where Madalena is? That's what it was. Do you know where Madalena is? And she smirked. It was so ever so slight. You could hardly catch it. But I did. I think I even round it back for you guys. Hey, Chosen, welcome in. Happy 4th of July. Fireworks leftovers. I'm sure I'll hear them. I still had my banner up until a minute ago. Hey, Ladybug. I said hi to Ladybug. CJK, I said hi to you, right? Frenchie, hello. Stephanie, hello. Welcome in, everyone. Cat K. It's good to see everybody. Hooking booze right now, Alice. All dialysis up. The old buffet in the hallway so I can haul it off tomorrow. Boone done bought a new antique pies. That's really funny. Sounds like me. I would have to move. I have to move something out of here to have something else put in. But but we have all new stuff, so I can't complain. Can't say anything neither. You know what I mean? Like I can't complain about that. Now I don't think there is any updates on Bryan Kohberger, other than just the fact that he's going to go to trial, June 2nd. And then just talks about the book. So Nancy Grace is going to talk about the book. So we'll go over here. We're going to cruise over to Nancyville. And I should get my cardboard cutout out. I have her all like I tucked away so I wouldn't hit her with anything and break it. So she's going to talk about, like I said, probably the timeline of the case. Everything just surrounding the case. And she went down to Moscow or up and over to Moscow when this first happened. She was there, I want to say like 2 weeks after. So it was like 3 weeks after. No, I'm lying to you. It was after Coburger's arrest. So it had to have been in January. But I think it was in January, like the first week, second week of January, she was there. And she drove the route from the King Road residence to Bryan Kohberger's house, and just exactly like how long it took, how dark it was, and how desolate those back roads are. It's almost like if you grew up in the country, those back roads. That's what it reminded me of, maybe a house every few miles or something. maybe, maybe a little more desolate than that. But we'll play Nancy, and I'll put up some picture overlays for you guys too. Oh yeah, one shot. Sorry. People be asking me to borrow money. That's so funny. That's so funny. Don't do it. Don't do it. That was a one shot. Get it? That's so funny. You need some Nancy? Me too, Wes. That would have been one shot. But don't let anyone know. Lady said thanks for the gifted membership. That's so very kind. Hey, Mike. Okay, so Nancy, it's going to be long, but I'm going to fast forward through the beginning. I think the beginning might be commercials, or does it go straight to her? No, I can't remember.
Ever wolfed down a Big Mac and thought,
you're ready for
anytime, which means
behind him.
Chilling, Bryan.
Business different.
Also, don't think I need to say this, but the views of Nancy Grace and her panel guest are not the views of this panel guest. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Sure, her views are probably the same as mine almost, but
Intuit QuickBooks, based on a survey of small businesses using QuickBooks Online in the U.S. conducted March 2020.
Howard Blum is joining us right now from Manhattan, along with an
bone-chilling.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Bone-chilling Bryan Kohberger details emerge. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Bombshell, a new tell-all book, reveals a bone-chilling theory on Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger. Author Howard Blum joins Crime Stories for...
So we've been going over this is the book that we've been going over, this Howard Blum book. So I just wanted to let you guys know. So we are on part 4 of 6.
For an exclusive interview.
Howard Blum is joining us right now from Manhattan, along with an all-star panel to...
And let me tell you actually really quick before we get started where he's getting his sources from, just in case you guys want to know. I thought he had let's see if he does. So he has in his book, everywhere where he got his information, like his notes on sources. But he was saying that he got them from talking to people in the town, people like family members. I was trying to see if I could find the exact spot. But it was family members and people in the area and stuff like that. That's where he's gotten these sources from. He may bring it up too.
Dissect what we know and what we are learning from Howard Blum. I have pored over every document, every search warrant, every return, every witness statement that I could get my mitts on. I have flown to Idaho, to Moscow, Idaho, in the midst of winter and trudged through the snow to look at the scene as best as I could, to drive the route. I believe, good times, freezing. Then got in an SUV at night in the pitch dark. At the time, I believe, Bryan Kohberger left that crime scene and started his circuitous route, although an hour's drive to his apartment at nearby Washington State University in Pullman, which should have been about an 8-minute drive. And somewhere along the way, he turns his cell phone back on. That said, after all that, I still learned so much from reading Howard Blum's book. The name, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. Wow. Even the title made me stop. And in the midst of everything we all do in regular life, working, your children, your cat, your dog, your mom, I managed to finish this book in one day. I practically could not put it down.
Okay, way to brag, Nancy.
I had it in 2 forms. I printed out what I had and had it on my iPad so I could look at it no matter where I was.
Why couldn't you take
Howard
a book
Blum,
with her? Or a Kindle, Nancy? Why couldn't you take a book with you? You could take a book everywhere, right?
It's amazing.
She just had to waste that paper, didn't you, Nancy? Just had to waste it.
Be sitting in the Costco parking lot in the heat, reading your book, trying to get to the next chapter before I came back home.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind. You sit in a room as an author, and you wonder if anyone will read what you write, and then to hear someone talk about it so graciously, I'm very flattered. So thank you.
Well, I've never been accused of being kind before, so I will take that with a box of salt. I want to get right to it. There's so much in your book. I had to take copious notes. So I'll just start at the beginning. It was an amazing intro, and I was struck by the fact that you start your book from Coburger's father's point of view. And what I learned about his father really touched my heart, how he never got to go to college, and he was so proud of Bryan Kohberger and was already referring to him as Dr. Coburger amongst his coworkers.
Yeah, we learned that in the book. This is from like people that have worked with him and things of that nature. But Bryan's dad, Michael, used to call him Dr. Bryan Kohberger. That is sad. If you think about it, that's real sad. Because we don't know a lot about Bryan. We don't really know anything about him. So if that's true, that's really sad. That's sad for his family.
And it reminded me so much, Howard, of my father.
I feel bad for his dad, like his dad's his dad was the janitor. He's probably like, man, my son's doing better than me. Look at him go. And then it's like, oh, look at him go. You know what I mean? I wonder if his parents were like, why do you want to go all the way to Washington State University?
We're first generation college.
The South is a great school.
And when I got through law school,
Pennsylvania has great schools.
In his mind, it was the most amazing thing ever. So proud, right? Now, here's my question with that lead up. Almost at the beginning, his father and his family, Coburger's family, suspected him of being the killer. I found that I was dumbstruck because, when I read about a crime, I don't immediately think, oh, my son did that. In fact, I've never thought that. Tell me your thinking and why you say that.
Michael Coburger makes this trip out to see his son to make the ride back with him. This is a 28-year-old man, and his father is worried about him. He's making this trip. It's fatiguing, it's expensive, but he's worried about his son. He's sitting next to him in this car, shoulder to shoulder. He knows the police are looking for a white Hyundai. And one of the first things he realizes when he meets his son is that his son's mood is volatile. That's his first sign that Bryan is in a state. He goes out to meet his son in Washington State, and he doesn't know which Bryan he's going to encounter. But that's his first sign, and he begins to see as the moods change and become deeper and more acerbic. He begins to wonder, oh my gosh. He begins to think the unthinkable. He begins to consider that his son could, in fact, be a murderer. And all this is building in his mind, and he's afraid to go there, as any father would. But he's getting these clues as if he were following footsteps in the snow, and the footsteps are becoming bloodier and bloodier. And he now realizes, could this really be true? And then all of a sudden they're driving along in Indiana, and they see police sirens in the back, and the car has to pull over. And he begins to feel, what is going to happen next?
Wow. Guys, with me, Howard Blum, who has literally written the book. The name of the book, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. And I have learned so much, more than we, the public, have learned, more than my sources have told me, by exhaustive research by Howard Blum. You're looking right at him. Howard, you stated that, these aren't your words, that you discovered this from what Coburger's father stated to other people. What did he state about immediately suspecting his son was the killer?
He went out to Idaho, Washington State at the beginning with suspicions. You have to remember that Michael, this is not his first trip out there. He even took his son out on the first trip in August when his son was just registering for school. He had real concerns about his son. son was a former heroin addict. His son had psychological problems. At the same time, he wanted to believe, against all hope, that his son was changing, that his son had reinvented himself. He had been a mediocre student, and now he was in an excellent graduate program for criminology. And Michael wanted to believe that his son was going to get a PhD. He was going to be Dr. Bryan Kohberger. And yet at the same time, in the back of his mind, he was thinking the unthinkable. And then things just fall into place. There was a shooting at just blocks from where Bryan lived as they were making this trip across country. A man, a former veteran, went berserk and took hostages in a student housing, and a SWAT team had to come in, and they killed him. And Michael Kohberger, as he told people who spoke with me, began to feel that there was something just wrong in this part of the world. There were evil forces, that's how he put it, at work. And his son was in it.
You know what? I've read a lot and investigated a lot about the family dynamics of Bryan Kohberger. Listen.
Bryan Kohberger's family members are concerned about Bryan's behavior prior to his arrest. Author Howard Blum says one of Kohberger's sisters confronts their father about the possibility that Bryan Kohberger is involved in the Moscow murders. But Michael Kohberger apparently brushes off their concerns. Blum says Michael Kohberger is on edge when he picks up his son to drive back from Washington to Pennsylvania, claiming the senior Kohberger has seen the headlines. He knows 4 students are killed 12 miles from his son's house. And according to Blum, Michael Kohberger knows what a troubled son he has.
Wow. You know, joining me an all-star panel in addition to this incredible author, Howard Blum. Howard, I noticed that one of the points of contention was about the route. And when I was driving that route from the King Road murder scene back to his apartment in Pullman, I was wondering why he did that, why he drove an hour in the middle of the night. And I'm sure you know there's no street lights. It's pitch black. I nearly ran off the road a couple of times when a semi would come by. But he basically did the same thing with his dad. The dad flies out, does a quick turnaround. He's exhausted. He gets in the launcher with his son, and the son refuses to go the direct and much shorter route. Do you think that had anything to do with Kohberger believing he was being followed or monitored?
I think Kohberger, being a criminology student, was trying to take precautions. At this point, I don't think he had any belief or any knowledge that he was being followed. However, he was trying to be circumspect. He was trying to be one step smarter than the authorities.
Again, in addition to Howard Blum, now preeminent author, an all-star panel. And I want to go out to Chris McDonough joining us, the director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room on YouTube, who, like me, like Howard, has seen the evidence, has walked the scene, very familiar with the area. Chris McDonough, you've had a lot of homicide cases, and very often family members know their son is a killer, but they will never admit it. And I'm thinking about Kohberger's dad, who knew he had suspicions at the beginning his son was a quadruple killer.
Yeah, and Nancy, I think what happens is that parental tendency kicks in relationship to they want to believe it, but they don't necessarily want to believe it.
So are we saying that Kohberger's sister and Kohberger's dad both thought that he did it? Man, that's a shame, Kohberg. Both your family members are selling you down the river, the Snake River, probably where that knife is. Probably where those dickies are.
And so it's kind of a tug and pull from a parental position. However, in this particular case, it's obvious Dad had his radar was way up and had taken that trip to go out and pick up his son.
Well, think about it, Chris. And let me throw this to Dr. Angela Arnold, a renowned psychiatrist joining us, AngelaArnoldMD.com. Have you ever seen parents that tiptoe around their child?
All the time.
That they're just waiting for an explosion? And When I was reading the first chapter in Howard's book, When the Night Comes Falling, you could feel the tension of the father in the car with Coburger on this long drive, just waiting for an explosion. But we got to keep in mind the dad, Michael Coburger, had spent his whole life trying to prop up, support, help Bryan Kohberger. So he knew it was like walking through a minefield. Anything could make him explode. And when Kohberger insisted on this circuitous route, which took hours and hours longer than a direct route, he went, okay, fine, you're the boss. Those are the words the father used to Kohberger.
Well, sure, because Nancy, the last thing he was going to do was confront this guy, because I have to wonder if the father knew all of this, was the father a little bit terrified of what could set Bryan off? And possibly was the father's life in danger at this point, because apparently Bryan was agitated at this time? I wonder if the circuitous route had anything to do with some sort of OCD kind of disorder that this guy has.
Howard Blum, you also described Bryan Kohberger, his heroin habit, how he got into heroin. And when he managed to kick heroin after his father turned him in for stealing the sister's phone, and he had to go into some sort of a rehab, a treatment to get his life straight, he kicked heroin and decided his body was a temple. And that is when he became a vegetarian. And I had wondered where that started, because now he's demanding certain types of meals behind bars and he's getting them. And I remember an anecdote where the family couldn't cook with certain pots and pans because they had once cooked meat. I'm working up to it. You reveal that Coburger had 2 types of plastic surgery after he loses 100 pounds. What were they?
What Bryan Kohberger is intent, and this is the admirable part of him, he's trying to reinvent himself. He comes out of this depressing hardscrabble existence, a family with 2 bankruptcies. He's going to a hardscrabble high school. His father is a janitor at the high school. He's sort of embarrassed by that. He becomes a heroin addict, and yet, to his credit, he works himself out of this. He then he's trying to approach girls at high school. They're ignoring him. He loses the weight, and he still has this sort of flesh that's going over his midsection. And
nobody got time for that.
Just not the sort of guy he wants to be. He wants to be a player. He wants to be one of the cool guys. And he thinks, so he has this surgery, these 2 surgeries are covered by insurance, and he reinvents himself. He's in good shape, as you can see in the photographs. He works out, he does martial arts, and he still tries to become the man he wants to be.
How does one get that surgery with it being doctor, like, okay, so they said that the doctor had to do it. The doctor, said that they had to have the procedure. That's a cosmetic procedure. So insurance wouldn't cover a cosmetic procedure, right? Unless, I guess, getting your extra skin taken off is not a cosmetic procedure. But yeah, usually it's very hard to get cosmetic procedures covered by insurance. That's something weird to me.
Plastic surgeries.
He has these 2 plastic surgeries to get over his midsection, so there's not this sort of envelope.
Howard, you're so polite. Okay, you outline it in your book. He had 2 surgeries, one of them being an abdominoplasty, and the other, you know what, they're long. Let me rephrase, Liz. You described 2 plastic surgeries that Bryan Kohberger has.
Don't anyone ever make fun of my reading now.
Both of them, I believe, were related to removing flaps of skin left over from the 100+ pound weight loss, a flap of skin and tissue that went down over his private parts and his lower stomach. He wanted to get rid of that. And when he did get rid of that through plastic surgery, he had a serious buff body, is the way I take it from your book. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. He had this vision that he would become a new Bryan Kohberger. And the tragedy is he almost succeeded. He gets out to Washington State. a new man, and he's trying to live a new life, and yet he's pulled back in to what he always is, to his essence, I believe.
Bryan Kohberger allegedly enters the home and walks past the first rooms he sees coming into the Moscow, Idaho house and goes straight up a narrow staircase and turns directly into the room of his target, Madison Mogen. Author Howard Blum says investigators believe Maddie Mogen is the target and her best friend Kayla Gonzalez is killed because she's in the room with Mogen.
Did Bryan Kohberger's parents suspect their son? An explosive new book suggests family knew more than they ever let on about their troubled son. Author Howard Blum tells us more.
Guys, joining me is the author, Howard Blum, author of When the Night Comes Falling, A Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. Howard Blum has gone where many have not, tediously investigating everything about this case, and the book is full of revelations. We were just describing how Coburger's own family thought at the get-go, before he was ever named a suspect or even a POI, person of interest, that he committed the quadruple murders. And in this vein, can you imagine Coburger's father, so proud of his son getting his PhD, flies out to Washington to drive Coburger back home to the Poconos area for Thanksgiving. And he's sitting there for all these hours in this white Elantra, which of course he knows has been named in the case, and looking over at his son, who is acting more and more volatile. But I want to move on to the next point. Listen.
In a shocking revelation, author Howard Blum claims Bryan Kohberger is not a random spree killer. He had one target in mind the night he allegedly killed 4 college students in their home off campus in Moscow, Idaho. Blum says investigators believe in a non-targeted attack, the killer would have stopped at the first door inside the house. It would have been instinctive to go into the first rooms after gaining entry, but that isn't what happened. Investigators point to the 2 surviving roommates, Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funke, as proof Kohberger is after a specific target.
You know, you really back your theory up with a lot of facts, and the way they're laid out, it makes perfect sense. But all along, it has been believed, it has been accepted that Kelly Gonzalez was the target, the original target, and the others were just collateral damage. But you say no. Why?
Well, at this point, Haley is not even really living in the house. She's living up north with her family. She's going to graduate at the end of the term in December. And Bryan really wouldn't have come in contact with her necessarily. But he did go to the Mad Greek restaurant in downtown Moscow. It served vegan food, which he liked, which he would adhere to strictly. And Maddie was a waitress there. And my belief is that they encountered one another in the restaurant. Were any words said? Did they have a conversation? I don't think that was necessary. You know, both the prosecution and the defense have said for the record that there was no interaction between Bryan Kohberger and any of the victims. He did not follow any of them on social media. He, to their knowledge, never had any real conversations with them. But Bryan was a man whose life was sort of determined by obsessions, determined such as being addicted to heroin, such as losing 100 pounds, such as deciding to become the best student after being a mediocre student. And I think once he saw Maddie, for whatever reasons, I mean, she's an attractive blonde woman, charming, vivacious, ebullient, he becomes interested in her. And I think his fixation, he would see the parties, he would be in, I believe, on the periphery of events as parties were hosted at this house on King Road, a party house. And he would look at that and he felt it was in some ways a constant rebuke to the life that he was leading and the life he wanted to live. He could never be a part of that. And he decided in his rage and his mania, I believe, to do something about it. And when he entered the house that night and he goes in through the kitchen, he passes 2 bedrooms, the bedroom where Zaina is with Ethan, and also the bedroom where Dylan is. He doesn't stop. He goes up a flight, which isn't your natural inclination, into Maddie's room. And he finds her, but he's surprised to see that Kaylee is there. He had no idea that as he's sleeping over, that she's staying for the weekend.
Howard Blum didn't get that one. Okay. That we're going to give that one a credit to Mr. Steve Gonzalez, because he said, and a quote, I don't want to quote because I don't really know his exact quote, but he didn't have to go up the stairs. What do you mean by that? Reporter guy asked. If whoever was on the second or the first floor, second floor, he didn't have to go to the third floor to bypass them to go to the third floor, because their target would have been right there on the floor that they were on. They have one entrance for the second floor, one entrance for the first floor. I have an entrance for the third too, but you just can't get up there.
She come to town to show off her new car. She'd just gotten a used Range Rover, and she was very proud of it and excited by it, and she wanted to share that with her friends. And he discovers Maddie and then kills her. Haley fights back, climbs out of the bed, is pressed against the wall, and he kills her. And Haley is collateral damage when he goes downstairs. The two other victims are collateral damage too.
Brand new home.
Door speakers. And
these deals at your local Kroger.
Author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace.
Hey, Ashley.
Joining me is a now famous professor of forensics, Joe Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, and star of a hit series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. But for my purposes, and most importantly, he is a, quote, death investigator who has investigated over 1,000 deaths. Joe Scott Morgan, you and I have gone over the evidence, both on air and off, trying to determine who was the target. First of all, does it matter who was the target? Because they were all four murdered. But the reason we were looking for this needle in a haystack is to determine if we knew the target, we could better figure out who was the perpetrator. Right? So you're hearing what Howard Blum outlines in his chapter 15. And I think this may be dispositive from your point of view, the attacks on Gonsalves versus Maddie Mogan. They are very revealing. Explain.
They're very revealing because of the level of violence I think that's involved here. You've got these two victims that are contained in that bedroom up there. And I got to tell you, based upon what Howard is saying, the idea that this individual, Coburger, allegedly knew where to go in this house, because as you well know, you stood outside that house, Nancy, it's a very confusing layout. You would have to have specific knowledge of where her room would be at that particular time. Now, the fact that there was another occupant in there, maybe that's the case, and he was surprised by that. But it goes to this idea of I would like to try to understand if he had scoped this place out for a particular period of time. Also, this kind of dovetails with what Howard had said as well, that he saw parties going on and that this is kind of a projection. He understands the life in there. There was a real chilling video that came up, I don't know, about a year ago. I don't know if you guys recall this, of them, the occupants of that house, actually giving internal views of that in a TikTok video. It made my skin crawl as a dad and as a college professor, because the individual that's seeing this can see the layout inside of that structure, which I think that we can all agree is kind of peculiar, to say the very least. Okay, you can't have it both ways, Joe Scott Morgan. Or you, Howard Blum, do I dare to call you on the carpet after you've literally written the book? We can't have, he's full of rage and goes after these girls because he can't have them. He can't have the party life, the popularity, the thing he's been seeking since he lost that 100 pounds and had those 2 plastic surgeries. It's not happening for him. You can't have the rage. Plus, I really like the way you laid this out. I'm trying to, here we go. Near the beginning of your book, you talk about Bryan Kohberger delving into, quote, the criminal mind, and will be a, quote, scientist exploring why criminals do what they do.
it's been kicked around that his motive, not that the state needs to prove a motive, they don't. But juries like to hear it. So practically speaking, you better hand one over on a silver platter on top of the Christmas tree. You can't have him full of rage and methodically trying to carry out the perfect murder and get away with it very calmly and methodically. So which one is it? What about it, Blum?
He was filled with mania, which is not the same thing as rage. And you're trying to understand, make a rational explanation for completely irrational acts. What Bryan Kohberger tried to do that night is to commit, I believe, the perfect crime. I believe he wanted to get Maddie. He wanted to kill her. And then once he gets into the house, once he finds another girl there, all his plans fall apart. That's why he leaves the knife sheath behind. He did think things out. And as the police well know, there wasn't any blood, a trail of blood left by the perpetrator in the house. All they had was the touch DNA on the knife sheath. There was no trail of blood going up the hill or where a car was parked. To this day, they have not found.
They never said
weapon.
anything about the house, Blum.
They have not found any clothes covered
just
with blood
outside.
from that house.
So Blum, you're wrong on that one. They didn't say that. They said there's no trail of blood leading outside.
It was filled with blood. We've all seen the pictures of the rivulets of blood leaking out from the foundation of the house. So he did have some planning. He knew enough, he thought, to turn off his phone.
And Blum, I should tell you, right there was some BLOD in the house.
From 2:47 to 4:48,
oh,
2 hours when the murders were taking place, and he was getting.
Hey, Howard Blum, you're the fire hydrant. You're giving me the information faster than I can take it in. I can't drink from a fire hydrant. You've got to give it to me teaspoon by teaspoon. And I'm telling you, this book, amazing. But Brian C. Stewart joining me, high-profile lawyer joining us, who practices in this jurisdiction as well as in Utah. Brian, I hear what Howard is saying. I hear what Joe Scott Morgan is saying. And I've got to agree. I empathize. I get both the theories. The reality is the state never has to prove a motive. But jurors want to hear a motive. So do you believe that when this case goes to trial, which it is, despite the defense dragging their feet and dragging the judge along with them, he's going along with it, do you believe the state has to pick a theory as to motive? Because these two are not consistent. Or are they? Rage versus method.
Well, motive can be an important part of the circumstantial evidence that leads a jury to understand why a perpetrator commits a crime. But as you said, it's not necessary to prove that they committed the crime. Here, where Bryan Kohberger seems like somebody who's studying criminal justice and perhaps sees himself as the smartest person in the room or a narcissist, his motivation may be to commit the perfect crime. And he would know that choosing someone in another city who he doesn't have a relationship with would create a lot of distance between him and the potential victim. That's the first thing that police look for, is relationships in a murder. And he might have chosen Maddie as someone who's young and blonde and beautiful and might get him a lot of notoriety as he evades justice. And so if that's his motivation, that could certainly be, the reason why he chose somebody and doesn't have necessarily rage for Maddie, but has rage for the system, or mania, as Harold says, to beat the system.
What happened the fateful night of the University of Idaho 4 murders? New theories revealed in a special episode with author Howard Blum.
And joining us, Howard Blum has meticulously investigated so many facts of the case that we didn't know about, including Coburger's past, how he lost 100 pounds and had 2 different plastic surgeries to remove a flap of skin from his stomach that went down over his genitals. He didn't want that look. He lost 100 pounds on his own, had 2 plastic surgeries to reinvent himself as a modern day Adonis. But according to his friends, what I'm reading in When the Night Comes Falling, his friends didn't like how that transformation changed his personality. He became a know-it-all, very aggressive, and that was borne out at Washington State University. He treated his friends in high school that way after he got his new look. He became, in his mind, the it guy, but somehow he couldn't pull it off. What, if anything, did that have to do with the murders of 4 beautiful University of Idaho students? Okay, to this whole panel, including Howard Blum joining us, I've got to have more than what Joe Scott Morgan is telling me, that the attack on Kelly was much more savage than the attack on Maddie Mogen. Why? All 4 of them were brutally stabbed dead. I need to know who is my target. And in this book, Blum describes a blood trail. He also describes the blood literally leaking down the outside of the house, which I observed when I went to Idaho. But that said, let's talk about the blood evidence, Howard Blum. What about the blood evidence convinces you as to who the real target was?
Well, one point that you just made about the wounds on Kaylee being so severe. Kaylee fought back. She was originally in the bed with Maddie. She gets up from the bed. The room is very narrow. She tries to get towards the wall, but she's trapped by Coburger, and she's fighting back, and she is not dying easily. It's a very violent death. And he's enraged that he even has to, I believe, that he had to encounter her. He did not expect her. And to then find this woman fighting back like a tiger is putting him in, his mania is exacerbating the situation. He thought he would go in there and kill Maddie, her presence rebuked him. I think that's what was going on that night in that house.
Nancy?
Yeah, jump in.
So there's a couple of things, from my thought process in this. And one is, that evening, Coburger, he's I don't think he's manic depressive or in a manic state in any way, shape, or form, my personal opinion. I think he's very organized. He selected his target set on purpose. And the reason I feel that way, there's a couple things. One is both Madison and Kaylee, they're attached at the hip from, elementary school. They select the same college. They have the same kind of birthday parties together. They're in the exact same house. And that evening, when Coburger pulls up, if he's our guy, he's got to see her car. He's got to know, based on the surveillance that he's been doing, that she potentially could be there as well. And so we have to now ask ourselves.
Whoa. I disagree. Because
Okay,
I don't know that Coburger knew about her new car, a Range Rover. That was new. And, it's a used vehicle.
At this point, Kaylee is not really living in the house. She's living in Coeur d'Alene. She just comes in for that weekend. And he didn't know that. He didn't expect it. And when he's circling the house, I believe, he's not really doing that night 3 times. He comes and goes. I believe he's not doing surveillance. I believe he's trying to find the will inside himself to turn off the motor, to stop the car, to climb down the hill and commit this crime. Each time he circles the house, it's not to see what's going on. He doesn't even really notice the cars, but it's really an internal battle he's fighting. If he had seen the cars, if he'd even seen the DoorDash delivery, there was a DoorDash delivery at 4 a.m., he might have reconsidered it. He was locked in his
Howard, hold on. Howard Blum, you were taking our program down a pig path. Now, I guess you joining us from Manhattan, that you have never been down a pig path. But what a pig path is certainly not a direct line or goes in any organized manner. It just goes all over the place. But you know what, Howard Blum? That's the way an investigation is. When I would sit around a table talking with investigators and witnesses, other DAs, one topic leads to another topic, And it's hard to marshal your evidence, which you did a great job in your book doing. But guys, he brought up another thing. Blum brought up that Coburger circles the house 3 times. And yes, I'm going to get to that store clerk who, in my mind, helped crack this case, who you say wants to remain anonymous, and I don't blame her. Long story short, how did you confirm, Howard Blum, that a white Elantra or car similar to a white Elantra circled the King Road address 3 times leading up to the quadruple murder? How did you confirm that?
Well, part of it is in court documents and the public affidavits, but I also spoke with the gas station attendant who gave the surveillance video to the police too. So a lot of that is public record. What is not public record, clearly, is what was in the driver's mind at that time as he was circling. Something you have to remember, in all the surveillance videos, there's not one photograph of the license plate of the car. There's not one photograph of the driver. You can't see who it is holding the steering wheel. The FBI has tried everything to try to pull a picture from inside the car of who was driving that night, and they couldn't. So Coburger, I believe, was the man in that Hyundai Elantra, and he was trying to find the will to cross over into the man who was thinking about this horrific crime to becoming the sort of man who could commit it. And it was a difficult, difficult journey he was taking internally that night.
Families of the slain Idaho 4 victims await justice as a judge sets a date for trial.
Yeah, and that judge, many argue, is kowtowing to the defense. When are these families going to get justice? That's a whole nother can of worms. With me, Howard Blum, the author of an incredible new book, When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders. Okay, all hands on deck to analyze what Howard Blum is telling us. Now, Howard Blum, you crossed over into the gas station video, which is later when I believe Coburger's leaving the scene. I'm going to go back to you stating in your book that you believe Coburger, a white Elantra, circles the crime scene 3 times that we know of before the murders occur. Now, not the gas station video. You are telling me that's caught on video. Is it, as you describe at the end, near the end of chapter 20, a guy who owns a rental complex, I think 3 apartments, a rental complex nearby, and he's got a camera on top of the rental complex looking down? Did his video catch the Elantra circling 3 times before the murders?
Yes. And in this video, too, they still can't make out a license plate. They still can't make out in the darkness the driver, but they are able to make out the car. When the FBI in Quantico is trying to figure out from these videos what kind of car it is, they try 3 different times until they finally come up with a Hyundai Elantra from 2011 to 2015. At first, they thought it was just 2011 to 2013. And that's one of the reasons why Bryan Kohberger takes so long to find him, because the authorities in Washington state were really looking for the wrong car.
Hey, Jessica Morgan, and everybody jump in. I'm going to circle back to you, Brian Stewart, about mens rea, about intent. Is it even needed? Do we need explicit intent, or is it implicit by the number of the killings that we have murder ones? Of course we do. But I want to talk to you about the legal theory. Before that, Jessica Morgan, you hear Howard Blum describing 3 times he circled that we know of. And it's caught, I believe, on the top of that rental facility. There's a camera up on the roof. And I looked everywhere when I was out there, Joe Scott Morgan. I went very slowly, and it was slippery and icy. And I fell more than once. I looked all the way up and down the street for surveillance videos. It's very narrow. I've told you this story. I could stand on one side of the street, look into the kitchen window across the street, and tell you what kind of liquid soap they had sitting on their sink at the kitchen window. It's that close. I did not see the overhead surveillance camera on that rental. It's on the roof. That's incredible. Now, he was talking about the FBI tried everything to enhance the tag and the driver. How? What do they do to enhance?
They're washing this thing through various programs that they have, Nancy, in order to try to tighten down the image, because I'm sure that it's very granulated. particularly given the nighttime status of this, where you're not going to be able to pick up, without some kind of light enhancement, like an infrared or something like this, that'll be able to give you finer detail. So it's going to be greatly compromised. And look, you have to think about the house itself. This house is kind of shaded in darkness from the rear. You're not going to see a lot there. There's not a lot. It's not like being in a huge city where you've got street lights that are all over the place that'll be illuminating this environment. So it's going to be a tough ask if you're thinking about attempting to get an image that's capturable, so that they can do what they need to do in order to identify this individual.
Okay, Jess.
With those back porch lights on, you could see anything illuminating off that back porch. I'm gonna find a picture.
Scott, just please stop. You know what?
Yep.
I can see a tiny little crater on the moon, but I can't get the tag number or the visage of Coburger's face. Why?
Because these houses don't have the Hubble telescope on them.
Nobody likes a smart aleck or a know-it-all, just Scott.
Well, these
You're
cameras,
right. You're right.
The cameras that you're talking about, they're not the highest of quality. I mean, look how many are turned out every single day. They're in shops all over the place. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a great quality.
Did Bryan Kohberger's parents suspect their son? An explosive new book suggests family knew more than they ever let on about their troubled son.
Howard Blum. His book is so chock full of evidence and facts supporting what many of us have been thinking and pondering. And so much more. When the Night Comes Falling by Howard Blum. Howard, we were just talking to Joe Scott Morgan about why the FBI could not enhance that video better than it did. I get it, but I heard you saying something in the background. What was that?
Well, not only couldn't they enhance the video, the FBI has this program that they developed really for anti-terrorism activities. And they tried 3 different times to analyze the car, and they got 3 different years. Originally, they had the car was not a Hyundai Elantra; they made it a Nissan Sentra, and then finally there was a 2011, and then a 2013, and then they finally at the end said 2011 to 2015. I can assure you, the FBI's fumblings will come up in court. I'm sure the defense will raise this and try to impugn the identification of the car.
Okay, wait a minute. The FBI fumbling? I don't see them fumbling here. What do you mean by that?
Well, fumbling in the sense that their technology was just not up to snuff, and they gave declarations. The first original be on the lookout notice was not for a 2015 Hyundai Elantra. It was for a 2011 Hyundai Elantra.
Hold on, Howard Blum. You mentioned a detail, and I'm not sure if you thought I was just going to ignore it or didn't catch it, but you said the FBI was trying to enhance. They tried it 3 times, I believe you said. But are you referring to the type of video surveillance that was ultimately introduced in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, where we had satellite surveillance from nearly 9,000 feet in the air to figure out what really happened? And there was video. Did the FBI go to the extent of grabbing sat video?
This was much more rudimentary. What they had was the surveillance photograph, and they tried to enhance it. These were grainy photographs, and they thought they run them through this machine, this process, this computer program that was developed at vast expense by the Department of Defense and Homeland Security originally for terrorism activities, and they thought they could get the identity of the car. And then they passed it out in their original Be on the Lookout that the Moscow police sent nationwide for a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. That was a mistake. That wasn't the year of the car they ultimately decided was Coburger.
I'm trying to find you that
gas
picture.
At Exxon burning a hole in your water?
Okay. Let me fast forward through these commercials.
Home ownership.
Penn Cash. Make Hollywood.
2,300 employees and contractors.
University of Idaho.
New and very disturbing details emerging surrounding the Bryan Kohberger quadruple murder case. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
What happened the fateful night of the University of Idaho 4 murders? New theories revealed in a special episode with author Howard Blum.
Thank you for being with us. Author Howard Blum has just come out with an incredible book chock full of not only theories, but facts supporting the theory, supporting the hypothesis of the prosecution that Bryan Kohberger, in fact, murdered 4 young University of Idaho students. Howard Blum, you describe in depth what happened with the 2 surviving roommates, Dylan and Bethany. Listen.
In the early morning hours between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., Dylan Mortenson says she calls out to her friends who she thinks are being too loud. After hearing more loud noises, Mortenson again tells her roommates to calm down. She's trying to sleep. She turns and locks their door. Hearing loud noises again, Mortenson opens the door and sees Bryan Kohberger, allegedly, and believing him to be a partygoer who is leaving, says nothing, shuts, and locks her door again.
The girl that lived. According to prosecutors, Bryan Kohberger went into the home on King Road with a mission to commit the perfect murder. Could he actually commit mass murder and not leave a trace behind? And what about the 2 that lived, Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funke? Listen.
Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funke are both home while their friends are murdered upstairs and are left unharmed. Sources tell ABC News and author Howard Blum that Mortenson and Funke were using their cell phones to communicate before, during, and after the murders. Many have wondered, since Mortenson and Funke were both in the home and on their cell phones when the murders are taking place, why is there an 8-hour delay before police are called, and why were other friends called before police?
Howard Blum joining us with an all-star panel. And guys, remember, we're not having high tea at Windsor Castle. Jump in with your own theories and questions. The state could use them. Howard Blum, I'm curious as well, and you devote a lot of time to this in your book, When the Night Comes Falling, about the delay on Dylan Mortenson's part. She actually sees the killer leaving the home. There's a serious delay, and during that time, a lot of evidence could and most likely was lost. Question to you. You described the police grappling with that 7 to 8 hour delay. Describe that.
The police are dumbfounded. They can't understand how this girl could see a killer in the house and do nothing about it. Her behavior is irrational. And I think, though, ultimately, the police and I have concluded that a rational explanation is impossible. I think she was locked in a state of terror. I also believe Coburger, as he descended and passed her on his way out of the house, was locked in his own state of mania. He was surrounded by his own armory of hate, if you will. If Dylan had spoken out, if she had tried to penetrate the moment that he was locked in, I think she would have died. I think she would have become another victim. Her terror, her silence saved her life.
You know, I haven't really thought about it in the way that you just stated it, which is chilling. Joe Scott Morgan joining me, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, and star of a hit series, Body Bags podcast. Joe Scott, we've gone round and round about Dylan Mortenson, more so than Bethany, because Bethany, while there, did not see the perpetrator leaving. That's why more focus has been on Dylan Mortenson. What do you make of what Howard Blum?
Some states don't require a front license plate.
Just said, I agree with him. If she had uttered a sound, she would be dead right now.
I agree. Here's my perspective. I think that there's an element to this where Coburger, if he did in fact commit these crimes, was in such an exhausted state. He has tunnel vision at this point in time. He's trying to clear himself of the scene. Think about all of the energy that he has expended at this point in time, starting on that top floor where there's just a slaughter that has taken place allegedly at his own hands, and then to be surprised by the other two residents on this floor with Zana and Ethan. He has to encounter them and make his way past them. I don't know that people, and I hope people never do, understand the amount of energy that would go in to try to commit this kind of heinous crime. And so he's locked in. I think that probably if she had in fact spoken, she would have just become an obstacle to him that he's trying to defeat, to make his way to that door so he can get out and get in that car and leave.
Much the way, according to Howard Blum, Kelly Gonsalves became, let me just say, an impediment because of the ferocity of the attack on Kelly Gonsalves. And her father said that he believed Kelly was the target. Now, Blum is saying Maddie was the target and Kelly was in the way. So that supports what you're saying. But I want to follow up with Dr. Angela Arnold. I want you to hear this, Howard Blum and Brian Stewart. You often have to go to State of Mind as a trial lawyer. Dr. Angela Arnold is with us, renowned psychiatrist out of the Atlanta jurisdiction. You can find her at angelaarnoldmd.com. Dr. Angie, let's analyze what we've just heard. How or could I use that at trial to explain to this jury why Dylan Mortenson did nothing? Now, I have defended Dylan Mortenson from the get-go. Dylan Mortenson is a crime victim. Let's not forget that. Before everybody heaps on what she did wrong. Okay, she did nothing wrong. She had been out like many, many thousands of vandals. That's the college mascot. Drinking and having a good time. There was a football game that weekend. She comes home. It's really late at night, around 4 a.m. She's been partying. She hears a noise. She hears the dog. She hears her roommate saying something, and she gets up. In that state of mind, how did she know who he was, that he was a killer? How did she know he wasn't just someone visiting and leaving? People were ordering food. People were going to sleep. They've been partying all night long. It's 4 a.m. Is that why she didn't call 911? Now, the crux, the rub, is going to be what's in those cell phone communications between Bethany and Dylan. But can you think of, as a psychiatrist, a rational explanation as to why Dylan did not call 911?
Yes, I can, Nancy, because let's just remember, these are kids that are in college. They're partying. It's close to the end of the semester. Would anyone in their right mind think,
I don't think they were
screaming. There's a
screaming.
killer in the house. And my friend.
I don't think they were screaming at all. That would be too much, in my opinion. I would just go for criminal justice and applied science, but I'm not saying that this has anything to do with it here. But in my opinion, they would be fighting too hard for their lives to scream. There may be a lot of shuffling around, a lot of noise, of course, but I don't think they would be like deathly screaming out. Like,
Friends have been killed.
Like
I
that.
am sure that didn't even enter their minds. There was noise. Apparently, there was always a lot of coming and going from this house because they're just kids in college having a good time, right? That was the culture there. So she did nothing wrong. I have a feeling that with all of the communication back and forth and everything, she had no idea who he was. She didn't recognize him. He was just somebody walking through the house, and she was probably a little bit scared because of the noise that she had heard. She was a little bit in shock.
I don't know. I don't know about her being scared, because if she was scared, she would have called 911. I think she was a little bit drunk.
I've been scared before and never called 911.
Nancy, and so if she was, it's not like she was out driving and drinking. She was in her home.
Hey,
and drinking,
slow down.
Sleeping it off.
Slow down, Nellie. You're preaching to the choir right now. I'm on Dylan's side on this. Back to Howard Blum. Yes, I can explain away why she didn't call 911. But what do we know about her communications with Bethany during that time, the other roommate? Does it prove she did know an attack was occurring, or does it prove the contrary?
You are raising one of the great mysteries of this case. All I have been able to find out is that testimony about those texts were given to the grand jury. The grand jury heard about it. The grand jury reviewed some of those texts. What they said, I'd be dishonest if I said I knew. My feeling is, though, that Dylan and Bethany are both victims. Their lives are changed forever by these events. And we keep on looking for a rational explanation for Dylan's behavior. It wasn't a rational night.
I think I know something. I think I can deduce something, Howard Blum, and I may be be proven very wrong come trial time. But let me go to a trial strategist on this. Bryan C. Stewart, veteran trial lawyer, who is joining us from this jurisdiction in Idaho. He practices there in Utah. Bryan, you've tried a lot of cases. And if you want to win a case, you marshal your evidence. You have a plan, what you're going. I recall when I would write out, I would write out every question verbatim for every witness. Of course, you have a plan when you go into a fight, but when you get a punch in the nose, the plan goes to hay, right? So you have a plan. Let's think about these communications. The communications between Dylan and Bethany. We know they were communicating by phone. Thanks to Howard Blum, we now know those were not phone calls. They were texts. Those texts were given to the grand jury who indicted Coburger. Think this through. I have a strong suspicion, a deduction, that those texts were about, what is the noise? Did you hear the dog? What's going on? Are they still awake? Blah, blah, blah. Because, Bryan C. Stewart, if those texts were about, oh my stars, somebody's in the house. Did you hear a scream? I thought I heard a fight. And text to that genre, I believe those texts would have been used as establishing a timeline. We would have heard about the nature of those texts if they were probative. In other words, if they proved anything.
I think that's right. We would have heard more about them. They would have given us more information about what the girls experienced during that period. But to me, the fact that they were locked inside their rooms and sending texts rather than talking or going to find each other tells me that they were still in fear and didn't believe they were safe.
Wait a minute. Bryan, I don't know if you know that my 92-year-old mother lives with us. And my husband just gave me the greatest gift ever. I don't like jewelry, fancy cars, or clothes. Don't even say fur. He gave me a granny cam. I love it. I can see what Granny is doing at night. Has she fallen on the floor? Is she wandering around aimlessly? Do I need to go get out of bed at 3 a.m. and go check on her like I did the first 8 years she lived with us?
Look at that glow up, Coburger.
To text. Why do you want to get up when you're wearing nothing but a t-shirt, go out in the hall, knock on your roommate's door, and go, hey, wake up. I've got a question. What's going on up there? Technical term, I don't know if you've got it in Idaho and Utah. BS. Of course they're texting. I text back and forth with the twins. They're in the back of the house, right? That's not, I don't find that disturbing at all. At all, Bryan.
I don't either. But if they had heard some struggle, if they had heard any screaming, it would make entire sense to me that they would lay low and be paralyzed by fear during those hours.
Okay, Chris McDonough joining me, director, Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, star of the Interview Room on YouTube where I found him. Chris McDonough, haven't we both agreed that these two roommates, Dylan and Bethany, they were the low men on the totem pole in that they got the bottom bedroom. And the house looks very different from the front than it does on the side than it does from the back. In the front of the house, Chris McDonough, As Howard Blum so vividly lays out in his book, whoever has to live down there, you can't keep the light out, even if you use darkened curtains. Every time a car pulls up in that driveway, that parking area, and a lot of people do because it's a very steep and narrow road, it's one of the only places to turn around and go back down the descent of the hill. This house is near the top of a hill. And people are turning around and pulling in. It's a party house. Every house around it is a party house. Constant traffic. So the low man on the totem pole gets these 2 bedrooms. And that would be Dylan and Bethany. Ergo, therefore, Chris McDonough, they keep their doors locked and their curtains pulled almost all the time. That is an entry point to get to the other floors. So people visiting the 2nd and 3rd floor residents often come through that door. So they keep their doors locked, Chris McDonough, and their curtains closed. And that's why. And Blum lays it out in his book. That's why the doors were locked.
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct, Nancy. I would agree with you that, the point of entry would, for an individual like this who has taken so much time to, plan this out potentially, to come through that front door, just doesn't make sense. The back point of entry would make much more sense, which also brings us to, the communication thought process. If I can comment on that for a moment. Today, this generation just communicates via text. Remember, up till 4 a.m., they're still getting people knocking on that door, i.e. the food delivery, et cetera. So it wouldn't surprise me one iota if at some point when these texts are revealed that they're communicating with each other, they're trying to communicate with their roommates. And quite frankly, when it goes quiet and Coburger comes down those stairs, they may have even been thinking the party's over. This is the last guy out. And they may have even gone back to bed. And so that in of itself, the fear factor could play into this, or quite frankly, like you mentioned earlier, maybe there's alcohol on board and they're just exhausted. They're just college students. They're going back to sleep. And that would account for the delay.
And much has been made of the fact that Coburger was wearing a mask. Why would she have not been suspicious of that? Do I have to say COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. And that does play into this.
People
now,
still
early
wore 'em.
on, we heard Kelly Gonzalez's
People still wear them where I live.
parents speaking out, stating she was the target. And I understand that because her wounds were so much more heinous than Maddie's. But according to this new bombshell theory, Maddie was in fact the target. Also, we are learning from Howard Blum's new book, When the Night Comes Falling, that there is blood evidence that Ethan Chapin jumped up and confronted Bryan Kohberger to protect his sweetheart, Xana Kernodle. To Howard Blum, I know that you have researched this so much that it may have.
How would he do that? And then end up on the bed with his head against the wall because the BLOOD, because YouTube doesn't like it when we say words, wouldn't have been on the outside of the home. And I'm pretty sure that's from him. Unless, and I don't know, but
become, SOP.
Unless Xana was on the floor and that floor is uneven and it goes to like a downward slope, then maybe something like that.
To you, but to us, the revelations that you make in your book are, let me just say, illuminating. Tell me the facts that support your theory that Ethan was stabbed as he was trying to protect Xana, and that after he attacked Ethan, he goes and says, "Don't worry, I'm here to help you," to Xana, and then kills her. What facts support your theory?
Ethan
coming up to confront Coburger was testimony that was made to the grand jury. There's also evidence in the coroner's report that was shared at the grand jury that he was killed with one massive cut to his neck that caught his jugular vein. Has to Zana speaking out, first saying there's someone here, and then the assailant saying, don't worry, I've come to help you. That's in the police documents. I think that's arguably one of the most chilling parts of this entire night. The suspect approaching Zana and saying, don't worry, I've come to help you. I think that shows.
How do we know he was trying to save Zana and he just wasn't unalive and Ethan like that?
Total commitment to the crime and to taking this victim and to making sure that anyone who encounters him is not going to live.
You go into each of the victims' backgrounds painstakingly. And Zana had just an upsetting background as a child. Both of her parents had been in and out of jail. And what does she do? She survives. She works harder and harder and harder. She's taken in by her aunt. And she is victorious.
Oh no, Ladybug.
Against all
After
odds.
you've been day drinking, oh no, they had a day game that day, guys. Okay, so this is how day games work. Day football games, if they're usually around noon. You all go to fraternity row, and this is how it was at Ohio State anyway. And you all get wasted at 9 a.m. You are drinking Natty Light and and you're lucky if it's cold at that hour. And then you go to the game, or you go and tailgate, and then about halfway through the game, you head back, you get some food, you drink some more, and then normally people start falling around my friends are probably lightweights, so about 9 o'clock. People start just falling over. So by 1 a.m., I wouldn't see anybody really probably being up. Too many people being up, unless you really want to party hard. But, after day drinking for all those hours, it's kind of hard. And usually you're playing drinking games and you're doing all the things. So you're getting drunk pretty quick too.
And I am just imagining.
So I think that's why it was so quiet there that evening, because they said the whole neighborhood was quiet that whole weekend.
Imagining
somebody
Jessica
said
Morgan,
that.
Her lying there in bed with her sweetheart, Ethan. And, I think you were with us at some point at CrimeCon before last, Joe Scott, when I finally got to meet Ethan's mom, who is just amazing. No, you were not with us. But then later when you were speaking, she stood up and started talking and during your address. And what a woman, the strength that mom had. She just remembering
Linda was
her
the best of times.
and what she said to me at CrimeCon still strikes me to this day. To you, Joe Scott, regarding the evidence, the blood spatter, the blood trail, the blood transfers, and what Howard Blum is saying, I want to merge those. Because if I were telling this to a jury, I would have to describe what Howard Blum says about how Coburger comes into the room and he is confronted by Ethan to protect his sweetheart, Zana. Ethan is murdered by a slicing stab to the jugular. And then the killer, as Ethan crumples to the ground, moves forward to his next target, Zana Kernodle. And she's afraid. And he says, don't worry, I'm here to help you. Explain how I can prove this at trial.
I think that when you think about progression, we talk about in forensics a commingling of evidence. And from the start with this case, and you're trying to tie in the timeline, you're going to have commingled blood evidence that you're going to find at the scene. And what I mean by that, Nancy, is that the two victims upstairs, if they were in fact the first, he Coburger allegedly would have had blood evidence on him, and not just on him, but also this weapon. And as he's advancing into Xana's room, he's already taken Ethan's life with the slice to the throat. He's going to advance on her. We know that there's very specific contact between the perpetrator and Xana. She fought back as well, Nancy. We have an indication that, at least through one report, that she had a defensive wound on her hand that actually went down to the level of the tendons. That means that more than likely, she probably grabbed hold of this blade
or she was shielding herself.
And then it's withdrawn and it slices through the palm of her hand. And we
could have your palms up to protect yourself.
Have to think about this scientifically. It's hard to dismiss the emotion, but you have to think about it as far as the progression. If you want to try to zero in on this and get an idea as to the order of these events, I think probably the biggest thing that this jury is going to see in this case when they see these crime scene images, Nancy, is that both of these locations, both of these rooms are going to be bathed in a lot of blood evidence. The big question is,
we don't know what the
how did he clear that
has
house without transferring a bunch of blood evidence to either other locations in that house or certainly within the confines of that car? How did he escape that without having blood all over the place at his apartment, for instance? That remains to be seen.
You know, Brian C. Stewart joining us, veteran trial lawyer, managing partner at Parker and McConkel. He practices in this jurisdiction, Idaho and Utah. You know, the defense is really going to have a heck of a time because the predatory nature of what was said to Xana. Think about it. Think about it. I would lay it out for a jury just as I believe it happened. Coburger walks into that dark room. Ethan jumps up from the bed. He approaches Coburger to protect his sweetheart, Xana Kernodle.
God, never knowing.
In the bed. He's immediately sliced across the jugular and falls to his death.
I mean, let's say if that's really true, right? You see this joker of a joke. Wish you could hear me in there in the jail. Micker Jokerson walks into Xana's room, let's just say. And because I'm going to assume that the door was closed. I'm going to assume the door was closed because, you know, they're a couple. And, you know, they were probably going to bed soon after they got done eating. But if I saw Bryan Kohberger walking in, I would have been like, dude, you got the wrong room. And then if he still proceeded to come in, you know, I would probably be thinking in my head, like, I could take this guy. But then all of a sudden, so maybe the only person who really didn't know anything was Ethan. But you know what I mean? Like if he was the first. Is that what they're saying? Because I thought they were the way they were read it off from the judge.
Right here. He then...
Or did he go upstairs to Maddie and then come back downstairs?
Advances on Xana, who's lying in bed. And he says the deceiving words, "Don't worry, I'm here to help you," before he murders her. He is well within his wits. He is prepossessed of mind. And he has the wherewithal to lie and deceive Xana. The predatory nature of his advancing silently towards Xana Kernodle is bone chilling.
I think the evidence clearly shows that he was clear-minded and intentional about everything that he did that night. And, you know, while we have to prove mens rea or a mental component in order to get a conviction, that doesn't necessarily include the motive or motivation for why he did the crimes. The mens rea would mean that they have to prove that he intended the actions that he did, which he clearly did, and then that he intended to take those
You're
lives.
right, PKC. And I mean, it would have to be kind of a surprise on Ethan because of his size. He would have, I mean, there's no way that Bryan Kohberger, I don't believe, I mean, maybe he's 'Superhuman strength, but I don't think he'd be that strong. But I guess by then his adrenaline is pumping because he just unalived 2 people and didn't realize he was going to have to unalive one of them maybe. Then he comes down. I'm just thinking. I'm wondering if anybody encountered him in that hallway, like where Dylan's door is. Because if you were to encounter him as he was coming down from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor landing, and you were in front of Dylan's room, or like towards that good vibe sign, I mean that would be close enough for Dylan to hear. And then if it was, maybe Xana ran back into her room and then he followed Xana. You know what I mean? Like he followed her in there. I don't know. It's crazy. I was just reading the chat. Okay.
It's impossible from the evidence that's available to say that he didn't intend to stab them, that he didn't intend to take their lives.
I've always pictured it as Ethan was on the bed when it happened.
Bone chilling, and to understand the ruthlessness of his
yeah,
actions.
Yeah, Yvonne. Yeah, someone come back from the kitchen.
Today? Good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. He was right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we coming from WSU.
Where are you headed? He later says we're going for Thai food, and the dad's like, "What?" You were seeing body cam video when a Hancock County, Indiana Sheriff's Department body cam, when they pull them over and ask to see Coburger's driver's license. Now, it was argued back and forth, and I claimed vehemently that this was no coincidence because there were 2 pullovers by local LE law enforcement in one trip home. When does that happen? How often do you get pulled over? I rarely get pulled over. So you get pulled over twice and you never even get a ticket? Oh no, that's stunk to high heaven. With me right now, Howard Blum, author of a brand new book, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders, which is amazing. And in his book, he outlines how these 2 pullovers nearly cost the FBI their investigation, or so they thought. Take a listen to more of the pullover.
What's WSU? So we're okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going where? Oh, okay.
We're slightly clutching because we're driving out.
To Howard Blum, I'm going to circle back to the fact that unasked, he starts talking about SWAT teams swarming the area. Methinks thou doth protest too much, in the immortal words of William Shakespeare. Nobody asked. Yet he's just regurgitating, vomiting the information when nobody asked. But I want to circle back to the so-called hatbox operation that you described so well in your book, When the Night Comes Falling. Explain, and why did the FBI, who absolutely was following Coburger as he and his dad crossed the country, thought that their entire operation may go up in flames?
Well, as you point out, the FBI decided that Coburger was a person of interest. They decided this earlier before they even told the Moscow task force. They kept this to themselves for either one of 2 reasons. The first reason was that it was the identification was based on genealogy, genetics, investigative genetic genealogy, and they thought that wouldn't hold up in court. Or a much more cynical explanation would be that the FBI didn't want to share the credit for Coburger's arrest with anyone else. So they go off and follow him, and they have cars, they have a plane in the air that's following his route, and suddenly they see Coburger being stopped. and they don't know what's going on, and they don't know what to do. They think a local cop, a local sheriff, had seen the be on the lookout for notice and swooped in on this Hyundai Elantra, or they're also wondering, how is Kohberger going to react? He is a suspect in a quadruple homicide. Is he going to get on the, put his foot on the accelerator and tear out, or perhaps he's going to shoot? Anything is possible. The officer who's coming in to give him this traffic ticket. The FBI decides to stand back and see what happens. To their great relief, Kohberger is allowed to go through, and they figure, well, this is just a traffic stop of some kind. Then 9 minutes later.
And it's almost laughable, Howard, because the FBI actually has a bird in the air watching. And they see one pullover by the Hancock County sheriffs, and Kohberger goes on his way. And then there's another pullover. Don't you know? They're like, what is happening down there? Why are they pulling over our quadruple murder suspect? I'm sure they were and they couldn't say anything. And they're watching from a bird, right?
Yes, they have a Cessna flying overhead. It's a hawk waiting to swoop down in case anything happens, in effect. And they've been building this case for 6 weeks, and they're finally getting closer. And they think the whole case is going to be blown apart before they've connected all the dots. And they are filled with a sense of panic. But discipline.
You know what, Howard? They were right. And this is no offense to Indiana at all. But I understand where the FBI is coming from, and you know how much I hate the feds. But that said, Chris McDonough joining me, Director of Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, and star of The Interview Room on YouTube. Chris, if they had stopped Kohberger and he nutted up and they arrested him or sped off, anything could have happened, because
I would have jumped out of the car and ran
can't predict
after
what
that
Kohberger's
second
gonna
stop.
do, just like his father. He had no idea what his son might do. We would never have gotten the evidence that we got when they finally got home to the Pocono area. Remember, they were surveilled. They went in finally, or in the early morning hours, they catch him, I think, in his shorts or underwear, wearing plastic gloves and separating his trash from everybody else's trash. And they see him go throwing trash in the neighbor's receptacle. None of that would.
Yeah, and y'all want to hear something even crazier than him sorting out his trash in little plastic baggies? He was sitting down doing it. He wasn't even standing up at the kitchen counter. I don't even want to know why were you sitting at the dinner table going through the trash, sir? If that was me, my mother would have, oh my Lord, she would have threw a fit. But yeah, he was sitting down. We just learned that in the book. He was sitting there when the cops came in. He wasn't standing. He wasn't running. He was just sitting there. Probably like, oh shit, that was quick. That's what I'd be thinking. Actually, I'd probably be like, what took you so long? I've been, scared every night for 6 weeks.
Would have happened if local authorities had arrested Kohberger for a traffic violation, or if Kohberger spun out and brought about his own arrest.
Bryan Kohberger.
So I understand why they were worried.
Their trash wasn't good enough for his trash.
And not only that, if you remember, this officer's leaning in. So if he would have seen anything in plain view, what Doc Morgan was talking about, any blood transfer or anything like that, well, the clock starts ticking right then and there. If this officer starts diving into this traffic stop, that you may have this fugitive task force surveillance team, overhead and behind them going, hey, what the heck is going on here? So, and quite frankly, I hate to say it, but I've seen this, as well as many others, numerous of times where, this thing could have gone south really fast, but fortunately, they cut them loose, and they were able to connect those dots later on.
Yeah, they didn't. Idaho didn't even know at this time. Or wait, no, they did. No, wait, hold on. Yeah, Idaho knew because they were following them, but maybe they didn't know yet. Because we were reading in the book, they didn't tell Idaho cops at first that they had figured out who Bryan Kohberger was through the IGG. They were waiting on some other stuff to come back before they told the cops right away. But then they told them, and then that's when they went to get the warrant to arrest them. So the FBI knew about this about the stops, but the Indiana police didn't know that they were making these stops. Like, these stops. I've been pulled over in Indiana before. They get you
Constantly
for them.
making trips to Home
They get you from them damn license plate tags.
Depot.
If they're not from Indiana, they're gonna pull you over.
Internship. Fisher Homes.
Moment for the 24/20.
They're like, "What are you doing over here?"
And what'd you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything.
Where? Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying because these people in the universe, you know what I mean?
So y'all.
Talk about volunteering. That's Coburger talking about the SWAT team as it related to a different homicide. But as you can see, he's going on and on and on about murders and SWAT teams that he wasn't asked about. And let's listen to more. Listen to the body cam.
So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh.
PhD in criminal.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
This happened about an hour and a half ago. They're still wrapping it up for investigating. I'm not sure there's two shootings, but they did shoot somebody.
Let's see.
And then you don't know about that actually.
It's really hard to hear it. Remember, that's a body cam that Ellie is wearing on their shoulder. And you hear the deputy saying, interesting, interesting. And you hear Kohberger's father, Michael, say, well, it's horrifying. So Kohberger knew very well how his father would view a murder, much less a quadruple murder. So while the FBI and their bird in the air, the helicopter at Cessna, is watching, 2 times police pull over Kohberger en route home. Howard Blum, in his book, When the Night Comes Falling, describes a, quote, hatbox operation. Only if you're in law enforcement would you know what that means. What does that mean, and what is it? How does it relate to Kohberger?
The hatbox operation goes back to the days of the G-men, when the FBI used to wear fedoras and they would trail people on the street. They'd have the fedoras over their Brill cream hat. Well, their surveillance techniques have changed. They now have cars, unmarked cars, planes, and even electronic devices. But the term stays. It means you're going to follow this guy. It's a complete operation. You're not going to lose sight of him. The irony is the FBI loses Kohberger for a while. They don't pick him up till a couple of hours later because he's taken a different route than the one they expected. And they pick him up through a license plate reader in Loma, Colorado. And then they stay on him.
And it really befuddles me why in the last minute, after all of his father's research about the best route home, it was a long drive, Kohberger, comes up with a very roundabout, circuitous route home. It takes hours longer than necessary. And his father is so walking on eggshells around his son, Coburger, that he goes, okay, you're the boss. Fine, we'll go your way, even though it made no sense. And that was not the route the FBI was expecting. And they lose Coburger. Reminds me of the circuitous route. I believe he took the night after the murders to get back home. Oh, my stars. We've got all the digital evidence to get to. The turning the phone off, the turning the phone on, the cell phone towers. And it's really interesting. Speaking of that, Howard, in your book, you talk about a pitch that Coburger makes to the local PD trying to get a job, an internship. And you quote what he says in his pitch. And I found it really interesting how he would help rural police departments better analyze cell and digital data to incorporate it into cases and prosecutions, which tells me, of course, he didn't get the job, by the way, but it tells me how intricately familiar he is with digital evidence and supports the theory that he intentionally turned off his phone when he left the King Road address and when he went into the King Road address. Yes, no.
That's going to be his undoing, Nancy. That was him being a dumbass. That's a dumbass attack right there, Nancy. That's what you call that. You don't turn your phone off right before you leave and then right after when you're on your way home. He should have spaced out the timing a little different, and then he should have done that for about 6 months to a year prior. Let his phone die for 7 hours, then turn it back on. So that way there's a history of that happening. See, that's how you establish an alibi. A real true alibi, that if you want to be lying, that's how you do a lying alibi. That's how you do the lying alibi.
Note, he writes,
it's better than driving around.
Reflects his arrogance, his sort of condescending attitude as he, the criminology doctoral candidate.
And then, sorry, but y'all, you noticed that didn't even work. I was out driving around. Yeah, we ain't buying that Coburger. And then Ann Taylor comes back with, he was looking at the stars. Try again.
He knows more than the local police. The irony is that within months that would be used against them, the evidence that they had compiled from cell phones and cell phone tower data.
Howard, you reveal a receipt that was found regarding a purchase of a uniform at Walmart. How does that play into this investigation?
Well, Coburger has a blue Dickies work uniform, a work outfit, a one-piece sort of bodysuit that he bought. And police are now theorizing that he wore that suit on the night of the killings. That's how he was able to escape without any blood stains on his car, whatever. Before he got into the car, he removed the suit, put it into a plastic bag, garbage bag, they theorize. And it also explains that long route home that you've mentioned previously. He found a place to dispose of this Dickies work suit that was covered in blood, and also the murder weapon.
You refer to a Dickies work suit. I believe it was purchased at Walmart, and that would explain not only why his clothes were not covered in blood, but the Dickies work suit, I think, is a jumper that you put on over your clothes if you wish. And that was never recovered. But to the receipt, did the receipt reveal when the uniform was purchased?
It was purchased, as best I've been able to ascertain. I'm sure they have the exact date. It was purchased within a month of the murders. That's what I was told. I don't have the exact date.
So not any time that he was working in systems. Remember, he had a job where he was kind of like a repair guy way back when. This suit, this Dickies work suit, was purchased just before the murders. And another thing, you go into great detail about the complaints filed against him at Washington State University by female students. And it went on and on and on. It wasn't an overnight thing. The faculty, the administration there went to great pains to document what was stated and to give him a chance to explain it. But you describe, Howard, the whole way home, how Kohberger was seething about what had been said about him by these female students, and more important, how he was going to beat the rap and how they could not.
Oh, she cut us off. Oh, dang you, Nancy. That means there's going to be a part 2. Yeah, she done cut us off. I hate when Nancy does that. She never told you there's going to be like a part 2, 3, 4, whatever. She just says like, she doesn't even say goodbye, friend. She just pieces out on us. Let me get the banners and stuff down, and I'll let you know what's going on. Where'd you guys go? There we go. Oh, well, I'm like, whoa, I'm all up in there. All up in your faces. Sorry about that. Kind of funny, though. But, yeah, so that was that podcast. I thought she was going to end on a different note. But I figured that they were just going to go over the timeline of the case and stuff like that. And her trip to Moscow. So I was right. Now, I don't know if the next episode will be out tomorrow or if it'll be out in a couple of days, but it might be out tomorrow. Because you know Nancy, she's pretty quick with stuff. She puts it on Apple Podcast and then she moves it to YouTube in like a couple of days. So, or like I think it was a day the last time that I said that. Where's Jay Logston been? Does anybody know? Is he still working for Bryan Kohberger? He's been gone the last couple of hearings. Hasn't been talked about. Just didn't know. Nancy, how rude, right? Zebra girl. I tell her that all the time. I have a cardboard cutout. I should have punched it. It's in the closet. I forgot to unwrap her and bring her out. Unwrap her. Like she's a present. She is a present. She's a special present for some people. Special present. Oh, but that's what we were talking about earlier, and I don't even think I elaborated the rest of the way. I didn't. So my other question, this will be from earlier. So, okay. With Idaho, I'm not sure when the next court hearing is. I don't think they've told us that yet. But the judge said that he wants to meet monthly to discuss what's going on in the case and if they're going to if they need any motions filed or anything like that. Just make sure everything is moving forward. That's what they want. They just want to make sure everything is moving forward. I was trying to see if there was anything else. I don't think so. I don't think that there is. I was looking to see if there's anybody on the live tab, if there's anything on. I don't know how Justin does it. How does he talk about Sebastian so much? Like, what content do you have, buddy? I want to know. I just saw he was on the live tab again, and I'm like, he was just on the Clutch Them Pearls a couple hours ago, and now he's on his other Hey Sweet Tea, that other channel he has. And now he's doing another one. And it looks like the same one. But hell if I know. Hell if I know. I don't know. Well, if you're wearing the Dickies outfit, you could put it in your pocket. If you have the knife sheath. They have like pockets. Little pockets. That's where I would put it. But I wouldn't put it. I mean, or a hammer would fit in there. They're pretty deep. Hammer might fit. Well, then that's a 2-in-1. I don't know. I don't watch them. I saw that John QQ guy like in my algorithm the other day, and I was like, oh, who's this person? And then I saw where he was, and I was like, oh, okie dokie then. But I don't know who he is. Yeah, I've never heard of him until like the other day. He came up in my algorithm. I'm like, who is this person? Yeah, Jenna, me too. I'll be glad when the trial finally is here. Oh, is he new, Mystic? That's weird. Yeah, no, that's weird. That's weird. It's weird. Another creator did that too, you know. And it's also weird that creators are fighting under Sebastian's name. You know what I mean? Don't bring your drama to the Sebastian Rogers case. How about that, guys? How about that? Because Tanya Titanium Bill is about to be on every panel yelling if y'all don't quit. You don't want to hear me yell. I can get mean. I can get dirty. I can get mean. But I ain't going to do that. Just saying, everybody better stop fighting. Because it's like creator after creator. I mean, it's all of them. Every single one of them. Even they even try to get me in it. Try to throw me into the fire. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. Oh, thanks, Mystic. Me too. I woke up. Well, I told Granny, I think last night, I was in a chat. I was like, if you go live tomorrow, I'll go on a panel. And then when I went up there, I was busy cleaning the whole time because like people were just talking. And I was like, well, I'll just let them talk. They don't care about Sebastian. Yeah, you got it, Ashley. See, Ashley's got it. Just, man, I guess I mean, I can do it. I could do that. I could cover the case every night, right? And then we bring in like 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 and on, whatever the amount. But there's no nothing. I don't want you guys to have to sit through, because I already know other creators have rewatched those family interviews to death. I know they have. I see it every time they're live. Let's look at the Proudfoot's interviews. So it's like, you know what I mean? I don't want to do that to y'all. Be like, let me share it with you too, so you guys have to watch it again over here. I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah. They'll go. Yeah, they'll be up and gone before we know it. I'm surprised they've lasted this long with them, actually. But it's only because people are still coming into their chat. If they went one night without like a real big live, if you know what I mean, just they would. Actually, they can't go on to the next because there is no next. What's the next case right now? I've been looking all day over. Like, I've been looking all day to see if what's new, anything's out. I haven't seen anything. There's been nothing new, Lori, with the Sebastian Rogers case since February 26th. The afternoon of 26th of the day he went missing. I mean, literally, he left and that's all we know. Isn't it crazy? Man. Wow. That a fake GoFundMe. Man, people be crazy. I heard somebody was paying like the victims. I don't know, like somehow he was getting part of the GoFundMe. He's getting part of the GoFundMe. I heard that another creator is getting part of people's GoFundMes. I don't know. I'm like, what is going on? Like, people are bad. Like, man, like the nerve, that's what it is. It's like they have the nerve. I mean, if you have the nerve to ask, I guess, then you got the nerve, but I don't know. Yes, Ashley, exactly. Going through this shit and their kids. Yep. We're missing. They would because they can't even stand to see their kids out of the room, let alone if they were missing, they wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know what resource to even consider. And they do true crime. That's how sad it is. They wouldn't even know where to call. They'd be like, not sure. I know, 12K. Right? I don't know. I don't understand why. I mean, if that's true, I think if he did give Michaela 12,000, didn't he know? Didn't he see? Like, come on, when it's just too good to be freaking true, right? I mean, look at that girl compared to Seth. No offense, Seth. You knew that T-Rev would take her. Yeah, she is Mystic. She's up there. Yeah, we could. I've covered Michael Vaughn before. We could always go back over Michael Vaughn. Yeah, I have videos over Michael Vaughn. It's just been I didn't get into all the craziness. And I actually didn't get into all the craziness. That's the Summer Wells case. So I'd probably be pretty decent at covering those cases because I don't have a bias going in. Do you know what I mean? Like I know that I did like a couple stories on Summer Wells. I know the gist of it. I don't know. I couldn't sit here and be an expert by any means. I couldn't sit here and talk about the case even on camera right now, probably, and be like feeling very, my self-esteem would probably be like through the, gone because I really don't know the case that well, but we can cover those cases. If you guys want me to cover any particular cases, just let me know too. And we can cover them. They're fighting like cats and dogs. Yep. What's up with that? They have no content. That's what it is. If you go to your Twitter right now, it's pretty dead, except for Karen Reed. Karen Reed and Sebastian Rogers are the two cases that are like in right now. And they just got the jury is hung in Karen Reed. So nothing's kind of going on there right now. I don't know what's going to happen with that case. They're going to have to refile. That's going to take a lot of time. She might not go back to trial for like a while, I would think. I don't know. If she like has to hire new attorneys in, she doesn't want them ones anymore. I don't know. And then we have Sebastian Rogers. And those are the two biggest that I could think of. Ashley's always good at helping. That's what I was wondering, Misty, because I saw some pictures today and I thought he was with the baby's mama. It looked like at like the swimming pool or something. And I was like, what? Sarah Boone? Yeah, let's do that one. I wanted to ask you guys about that. We got to do Sarah Boone. I'm getting in the suitcase. I'm already going to do the, I forgot about Sarah Boone. I meant to ask you guys about her, actually. She's representing herself. It can't get any more perfect. It can't. Like, it really can't. It can't get any more perfect than for her to represent herself. I'm sorry for Jorge's family that they are going to have to deal with that mess. But for us on the outside looking in, that's what we are, I'm going to be laughing. And we were covering Corey Richins too. So if you guys do want to see those ones, I could put that like a poll up because we were covering Corey pretty hard there for a minute. But I just wasn't getting the people like in the chat. Like we weren't getting anybody. He was like, and I'm like, come on, this is a good case. She done killed her husband with the Moscow Mule. But yeah, we could do that. Something just happened in Corey's case. And now I don't know what it was. Did she get a new lawyer or something? I forget. Yeah, the why me, yeah. Like, she said I know it is tightly sealed. Man, Sarah Boone, drinking out of the water spigot. I'll never forget it. Every time I think of her, I think of that. I just think of her drinking all that water. She's some of her they've either quit or she's tried to fire them. And they're public defenders. Sarah, honey, you don't have a choice, really. Just take what you get. I mean, really, sorry, it's state funded. She called one of them a buffoon and he left. Nuh-uh. 2 new women lawyers took it over for her. When did that happen? Because it just happened. She was representing herself like 2 days ago or something, or 3. I mean, it was just like last week, wasn't it? Maybe she does have some more new ones. Let's see. Let's look up old Sarah Boone. Eight attorneys later. Let's see. This is 2 days ago. I'm trying to find anything from today. 2 days ago. 8 attorneys later, Florida woman accused of letting boyfriend die in a suitcase must represent herself. This is unless you know, a different one. Or are you talking about Corey? I did miss the joke. No, I got it. No, I got it. I swear I laughed it, and I thought I read it. Yeah, no, I did. I read. I laughed. I don't know. Maybe I didn't laugh out loud. Maybe it's like I did. I laughed about it. That's funny. Objection, Miss Boone. All I said was good morning, sit down. Yeah, oh my Lord. I don't think it's gonna happen. But maybe Tammy was Corey Richards. That's okay. I was like, Sarah Boone, what? Because I was gonna say maybe they gave her 2 females to calm her ass down. That's what I was thinking. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, true crime. You can do that. Maybe we'll do it like this weekend sometime. Or maybe the beginning of next week. Okay, so DeMama. She so every once in a while there's a case that comes across and it's just so outrageous that you almost have to like laugh at part of it because it's that outrageous. It's literally so outrageous. but she unalived her boyfriend, Jorge Torres, by playing a game of hide and go seek. And they both were hiding at the same time, I guess. And they decided to hide Jorge in a suitcase. So Jorge got in the suitcase and Sarah, zipped him on up in the suitcase. And then she sat down on the couch. And as he's asking her to let him out of the suitcase, saying, I cannot breathe, Sarah, I cannot breathe. She said, that's my name. Don't wear it out. And she took her phone out and was recording the whole time. So she recorded his death. We've heard it. We've all heard it. Not the final ending or anything, but we heard him talking, and that's enough. It's enough for me to see. And that's why I don't play it a lot on the channel. I've only played it, I think, once or twice. Like, I just don't like hearing it myself. And like, it's so sad. Then she went to bed because she was tired. Like after helping him in the suitcase and sitting there recording it, I guess that's, you get tired. Then she woke up the next day around 12, but she said, I was up at like 11 or whatever, but I just didn't get out of bed until then. So she didn't get out of bed till the afternoon the next day, comes down. Suitcase still zipped up at the bottom of the stairs. And she calls her ex-husband. First phone call she makes is to the ex. What? And he was like, what? Why are you calling me for? And she said, well, didn't mean to leave him in there. Thought he was comfortable. No, she didn't say that. She didn't say he was comfortable part, but I don't know how he got in the suitcase. I tried it in September when we got back from California with Vincent's, but I didn't really try. You know what I mean? I wasn't like fully invested, I guess, getting into the suitcase. But this year I am. So we're going to get me in the suitcase because I'm going to try. I'm going to try and see if we can do it. Because I want to know how long and how hard it took for them to get this guy to fit into the damn suitcase. Because when I tried to fit in there, I couldn't. And I'm the same size as Jorge. Yeah, I did. I did, Mystic. I got in that suitcase. I said, don't zip me up, Vincent. He wouldn't get in. I tried to get him to get in. He's like, heck no, I know that Sarah Boone case. He knew exactly what I was trying to do. Yeah, she also said that's what it feels like when you choke me up. Yep. Yeah, because they were back and forth, DV here, a little DV there, little DV here, DV everywhere. Yeah, I bet every day her ex-husband wakes up realizing he got a second chance at life. That could have been him. Yeah, he got lucky. Well, that and he couldn't fit in the suitcase. Pretty big guy. He's a pretty big guy. That's so rude. I'm on one. But I like your new profile picture, Ashley. That's cute. You do have the best skin. Yeah, that's why it's horrific. Vincent ain't stupid. Yeah, he's like, I ain't getting in that. Every time we're at the store, I'll look at the we'll look at the suitcases. We both think of her now. We can't even go suitcase shopping. Man. But I think that's all I have for you guys for tonight. I think we'll read the book tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, we can read tomorrow. Maybe I'll come on twice tomorrow, but maybe we'll just knock this dang book out of the ballpark. Because we've only got this weekend we're getting this book done. I think we could get it done in 2 sittings. We have the defense's story, which is next, which I think that's going to be pretty good. And then Steve's story. Why is he ending everything with Steve? His article ended with Steve too. I took the book cover off because it kept sliding off. It's somewhere around here. Oh, and then I also have another Idaho book. If I do read it, I'll give you guys I will read it, but once I do, I'll give you guys a little, I'll do a summary over this one because this one's a lot longer, I think. Might take me a little while longer, but it does have this one has pictures. Remember I was showing you that the other night. So it's like a picture book in the middle. It's pretty nice. But yeah, so books everywhere. Mystic, I will. Rescue from the suitcase. I wouldn't let Vincent zip me up in it. There's no way. No, I'd let him. Actually, I would trust him. I'd trust him. But he probably wouldn't want to let me out. Because he'd be like, dang, she don't need nothing right now. I go somewhere and I come back with all kinds of stuff. I'm not testing the suitcase. That's all I'm saying. One will test it because his is big, like that one. You know what I mean? Like that maroon one was pretty large. His is like one of those like Swiss Army like ones or something. I don't know. It reminds me of that brand anyway, if it's not that exact brand. So it's a pretty big suitcase. You're gonna hear me saying, "Let me see." Oh, Ashley, I trust Vincent to zip me up too. You could, you could trust him. He'd let you out. He'd let you out. He'd probably let you out too early. He'd be like, I didn't even do the experiment yet. Still doing it. I think at the time she thought it was funny and she didn't, she wanted to have it like a trophy, but she was really drunk and passed out and forgot what she had recorded. That she recorded it and was still on her phone. That makes sense. I mean, they were going back and forth with the DV stuff. Do you know what I mean? It was on both sides, it seems like. So maybe she was. I'm claustrophobic too, but I think I could still do it. I would maybe if it was my husband. Yvonne said, I would maybe if it was my husband. Yeah, I'd let Vincent do it. Only Vincent, though. I'd let Vincent do it. He'd be like, sure, let's try that. I would do it now, but I have the suitcases are out in our shed, and we have like 50 of those black totes with the yellow lids from Lowe's in there. We've got like, I don't know, 20. Oh, we appreciate you, Ashley. Well, I'm gonna jump off here. We don't have any dates for next court hearing, I don't think. Let me see. These are all in the future, like way in the future. March. Yeah, these are way in the future. Okay. So those are all in the future. So I will see you guys tomorrow evening or tomorrow during the day, actually. I might come on during the day, probably during the day, to read some of this book. So I want to get it done. They could be, Chris. They're not getting it from me, though. Believe you me, nothing weird happens on this channel. Nothing weird. No, unidentified callers. No panel guests that don't come on camera. We don't trust nobody around here. We don't trust no one. Yeah, Mary Beth. Yeah, no, you stay out of the suitcase. Unless you're getting shipped over here. And then put some holes in the suitcase. Okay. Well, you guys are the best. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. I really do. Actually, hold on a second. Let me see something for a minute. So that you can hear it instead of Vincent if I see something that I think I'm going to see. Because I'm going to be like, so, oh my God, stop. Someone go tell Justin at Clutch the Pearls. Just tell him, just don't cover Chelsea Grim's case if he's just going to keep extending it out. Because if he covers it, then his little crew's going to cover it. And then the whole, oh my Lord, it's going to be a mess. I'm going to scream. I'm going to cry. I'll scream and cry if her case gets messed up. You know what I mean? But I saw that. And he was supposed to do it like 6 days ago. And then he was supposed to do it tonight. He was supposed to do it last night. He's supposed to do it the night before. I'm just saying, if he's going to do it, tell him to do it. Tell him to do it. I can't either. I can't deal with the whole group, the Z group. I don't know, the Z team. But I'm gonna get in trouble again. Remember, I got in trouble. I said something one time 3 months ago. Someone screamed at me one time on a live for 5 minutes straight. Just screamed about me. And you know what I did? I laughed the whole time. Me and Vincent laughed. I wish I could pull that video, but I don't know exactly when it happened. Or I would. I don't know why they call him that. I don't know why they call him Spanky. No, I can't. Dreamcatcher said I can't. I love Justice. Sorry, no, you're fine. You are fine to like who you like. I just personally don't watch him. I just personally don't watch him. But you know, the group he runs around with is something else. I always get into trouble. Yvonne said, me too, Yvonne. We both do then. We both do. I get in trouble for everything I do. But thank you guys for being here tonight. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. I guess today I saw a comment earlier that a lady said, and I'm gonna that's why I'm adjusting it so I could tell you why we do it. But she said, I love your content. She loves this fact base or whatever. She said, but you ask us to like the video right in the beginning of the live. And I don't like to do that because you know, I guess she wants to watch the live. Totally understandable. I said, well, it's understandable. I said, but we do it just so we can get into the algorithm, you know. And I could, because if I could throw a video out there and then more people will see it, more people click the link, more people come in. You know, it's a thing. But I understand it. So if I ever do that, I'm sorry. But I do it every live. I know I do because that's my routine is to say that. Now I could take 25 minutes from you guys in your life and ask you for money if you want me to do that. Don't make me do it. Speaking of which, if Barbie's in here, I went and bought some cat treats yesterday. I've been thinking of her ever since she sent the little thing for, like, she said, get your pet something with this or whatever, the super chat. And I'm like, here I am again, getting these cat treats, cat food in the cat aisle. But he's my baby. But thank you guys for being here tonight. It made me look back to think the dogs were here. I will see you guys all tomorrow night, or tomorrow during the day, I'm sorry, on tomorrow's live. So make sure your notifications are all set to on. Bye, guys.